What is up, Georgia Tech fans? It's fantastic to talk to you tonight on a Tuesday evening. We are excited. I've got the new merch in, the Section 103. We're excited about that. We got a little bit of different of a viewpoint tonight that we're going to be talking to you from normal, not in our normal area, but we're going to be bringing you some fantastic opportunities as well. If you're over on Twitter, we appreciate you tuning in. If you want to jump into the YouTube chat as well, that's where we're going to be able to see your comments as we kind of break down and talk about exactly what we want to see from Georgia Tech in the second half of the season. We talk a little bit about what happened in the latter half, and then we come full force and we talk about what happened with the Duke game as well. But once again, you need to follow us, The Crowded Booth. You need to follow the Hive GT, Georgia Tech 24/7 Sports as well. So we got a person there. Let's go get another win on the road in Charlottesville. Go Jackets from KJ76ATL. I know a lot of you right now are probably watching that Atlanta Braves game. We're going to keep you up to date with that as well. Atlanta tied the game, but then Rowdy Tellez sends one over the wall as we get 4-2 right now. So we're excited to talk with you about that. Section 103 just retweeted the tweet. Guys, Steven, the package just came in. You see it right here. Got the hoodie on, and I'm telling you, this is a very, very comfortable hoodie. You guys got to check it out as Section 103. Use code CROWDEDBOOTH for 10% off your first order. We're going to talk tonight a little bit about Georgia Tech and the Duke game. Then we're going to pivot and talk about the first half of the season. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on how the first half of the season's gone. I want to talk a little bit about what the fan base's reactions were, specifically in a chat that I was a part of on Saturday evening. And then I want to talk about what the expectations should be going forward. So we're going to take a look at Georgia Tech's schedule. We're going to take a look at a lot of different things. But once again, we welcome you into Swarm Talk, the dedicated talk show for your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Listen, I know there's a big fan base out there of Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket fans. We need to get them in here. This needs to grow because of you guys, because let's be honest, in Atlanta, there's not a ton of coverage of your Yellow Jackets. But we want to be able to bring that to you. So let's talk about this as a whole right now. Georgia Tech goes up to Duke and gets a win. And that's what I have to say about that. They go up and they get a win. But for some reason, it wasn't enough for some people. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It wasn't enough for some people. It was one of those things that was kind of tough. There's David right there over on YouTube. Virginia Tech, our must-wins. We're taking, we want to go bowling. David, appreciate the comment. The win versus Duke showed a lot to me. And you say, okay, well, what did it show you? To me, what this showed was a team that really, in all truth be told, hasn't done what they really wanted, but then has sometimes done what they wanted. What do you mean by that? They've been hot and cold. They've been able to do things that necessarily, in my opinion, I didn't think they could do, and then things that I thought they could do, they're not doing very well. One of those is the offensive line. But on Saturday, they overcame a lot of adversity in this game. Some of those were self-inflicted. Some of those were due to what Duke was doing, especially Mateo Durant running the football. But I think there's a lot of positives you can take out of this. And I'm not necessarily in the camp of saying, well, Bryce, Georgia Tech and Jeff Sims, Jordan Yates should have got the last snap, the last drive. He should have got the last drive because Jeff Sims is throwing these picks, and it seems like high risk, high reward. Well, I want to beg the question, what was the expectation coming into this season? I've been covering the program for 3 years now, and since Collins, I was there and when Collins first got there. Once again, we appreciate you watching over on Twitter. If you want to comment, go over to the YouTube link. It's on my profile if you're over there watching. Get in there so we can see your comments. You can join the show. We want you to be a part of this. But I remember being in Bobby Dodd when Geoff Collins was hired at the press conference and all these different things. And at that point, Paul Johnson had done a good job, but in fans' opinion, he kind of run his course. And I think this is a good topic to talk about on a bye week. But for Georgia Tech, what is the expectation coming into this season? You look at the schedule. You see Clemson, North Carolina, Georgia, and Notre Dame. And a lot of people nationally, including myself, chalk those up as 4 losses. And if you had any of those games as wins, I'd love to hear. But on paper, I had those as 4 losses. So you said best case scenario, maybe 8-4. Well, you win the game against North Carolina, you drop Northern Illinois. But what is the expectation? There was a lot of conversation of that Georgia Tech should be able to walk into Durham, a place they haven't won since 2013, and show up and be better. And I would challenge the fan base in this, and we may lose some views on this. I want the comments. I want you to disagree so we can have a conversation. Because like I said, this is for you guys. What is the expectation of what Georgia Tech's trying to do here in year 3 under Collins? In my opinion, really year 2, because year 1 was that much of just a kind of a disaster, or year 2 was. If the expectation for Georgia Tech was to be a bowl game, you still have that in front of you. If the expectation for Georgia Tech was to compete for the Coastal, it's not out of the question. Who knows what's going to happen the rest of the season? But if the expectation was to immediately rise to the ranks of the elite in the conference or in college football, then I don't know what preview magazine you read. Because this team is still amazingly young. I'm going to talk about the offensive line and why I believe that there's help on the way. But this offensive line, this team, they're really young. Now, I know the offensive line does have some veterans. But if the expectation for this team was to compete nationally, and I feel like we get caught up in a conversation sometimes of, well, look what Alabama's doing. Look what Georgia's doing. Look what Auburn did. Look what Tennessee did. Tennessee. We're talking about the same Tennessee that lost to Georgia State a couple of seasons ago. But look what Tennessee's doing. They've put themselves in position to go to a pretty nice bowl game. They've shown they got Josh Heupel. They can put up points. But what is the expectation for Georgia Tech? My expectation was 5 to 6 wins. Compete to go to a bowl game. Be competitive against some of the top-tier talent. Don't get beat 73-7 again by Clemson. They didn't do that. Challenge them. They challenged North Carolina, and they won. But what you're seeing right now on campus is to me, just further proves of why Georgia Tech's on an upward trajectory. And you say, well, how can you say that? Because this past game, this is a game that Georgia Tech would lose 2 to 3 seasons ago. They'd roll over. They wouldn't win this type of game. So when you ask, you say, well, we should have gone in there. It's Duke. They're not very good. Well, okay. On paper, I don't know where the big difference in the two teams is. Georgia Tech's got athletes. They got great athletes. Georgia Tech right now can't block anybody. Jeff Sims is running for his life. Jeff Sims is throwing these interceptions. Now, this is the maturation process of a young quarterback that you have to fix. And he will grow as the offensive line grows and gets better. But Jeff Sims is having these 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He's missed some time. But the 4 interceptions, 2 of them, and last week, are not even on him, in my opinion. But if you go back to, and let's say, the one this weekend, he's trying to make plays because the offensive line isn't good enough and is not executing well enough to give him time to do anything. So what does that do as a young quarterback? Well, you just go down to Auburn and see what's happening. When your offensive line and you don't trust them as a quarterback when they're not playing well, and you don't trust them as a quarterback, players tend to try to do more than they're asked. And right now, Jeff Sims feels the burden. There's a couple of reasons why. He knows that there's a capable backup, albeit the ceiling is not as high, but the floor is pretty high for Jordan Yates. But he feels the pressure to make the big play because this is the big turnaround, and it's Atlanta, it's the 404, and we get all this stuff. But Geoff Sims is pressing to try to make plays because the offensive line is not good enough to establish the run game consistently. North Carolina did a great thing. Pitt, it was terrible. That's also the product of a young team. You're going to have the highs and you're going to be in the lows and the valleys. But what's different for me compared to last season is that when you look to last season, this season, there was no game like North Carolina. Florida State, okay. North Carolina, I'm not buying the argument North Carolina's just not good. I mean, they're probably a little overhyped, and we had them, number 9 in the country to begin the season. But to say that this team should show up just because they beat North Carolina, they're going to have a performance against Pitt like that because they're young, they're inexperienced. That's what's part of the challenge for coaches around the country, and college is trying to figure that out. When Georgia Tech does have the success, and it's been far and few in between, but when they have the success, how do they handle it? Because listen, there was a lot of talk after the North Carolina game is Georgia Tech, now they can get it rolling. We talked about it here on Swarm Talk. How could they get it rolling? How could they keep it going? They ran into a buzzsaw in Pitt, one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the conference, but in the country. They go up to Duke. They find a way to win. And to me, that is huge. Finding a way to win. Because listen, guys, and Jason, I'm going to get to your comment. Winning this game at Duke sets you up for every goal that you had going into the season. You're through 6 weeks. You're 3-3. And truthfully, I felt like this team could go 3-3. Except my preseason had switching out Northern Illinois for North Carolina, but But the big thing is you still have everything in front of you. We're going to talk about the latter half of the season here later on, a little bit later in the show. But it's important to me to get that to the fan base. What were the expectations for this season, realistically? And if realistically you can say, well, I wanted to make a bowl game, then why is this team not on the upward trajectory? They've already matched their win total. They've got 3 wins. North Carolina, Duke, Kennesaw State, narrowly lost to Clemson, narrowly lost to Northern Illinois. You take those 2 games and flip them, this is a 5-1 team with serious ACC title going to Charlotte aspirations. Now, many nationally might not say that, but if you flip that, they beat Clemson and they take care of business in week 1. And let's just say the results stay the same. I don't know if they would have, but let's say they do. This team's 5-1 with a loss to Pitt, positioning themselves with 6 games left to go to get 1 win. But still, they're 3-3. Did anyone have them not being 3-3? Now, you change the opponents around. That'd be something interesting. Jason, we got you here on the show. Agree 5 to 6 wins, show improvement, play sound, which means low penalties, and limit hurting yourself, low turnovers. Jason, I like that. I think 5 to 6 wins was the goal coming in. I wanted Georgia Tech to show some of the improvement, but I also wanted them to play sound, and you also want them to limit hurting yourself. That's part of the process of becoming a better football team. That's also a part of the result of being a young football team, and what comes with that is there's very few young football teams that are able to sit there and go, we can handle this. And those are the great ones that are not going to be rattled by the big time, the big time noise. After that North Carolina game, Georgia Tech kind of popped up on some people's radars, even nationally the next day. Scott Van Pelt that night talked about him on ESPN, on SportsCenter. But when you look and see at what this team had to do, yes, they need to limit turnovers, Jason. Yes, they do that. Going back to David's comment, Virginia Tech are must-wins for Tech if we want to go bowling. We're going to take a look at that. But I'm asking this to you, the fans. I really want to know because there was a lot of conversation, and you can go on any message board, and I'll throw them out there. Obviously, I'm affiliated with GoJackets.com, the 24/7 site. But if you go on GT Swarm, I mean, there are a couple threads on there where I have no idea what people are trying to persuade to happen. There's a thread called Fire Geoff Collins. If you fire Geoff Collins, you set this program back. And you say, well, why? Well, because he's recruited. He hadn't even got his full 4 years of recruiting in, and you're firing a guy and a new guy would have to come in and step in and get his people. You can't just. Alabama has ruined college football fans' perspective. Not a lot of people remember, and I don't want to insult people's intelligence on here, but not a lot of people remember who make these comments of how bad Alabama was before Nick Saban came to town. How they struggled. They weren't the powerhouse. They weren't getting the top recruits. It takes time to build something. And it's very rare that teams do that in such a short amount of time. And so give this program some time. It's not easy to go from the personnel-wise, and I want to talk about personnel, but it's not easy to go personnel-wise to what you want to do and have it click automatically. And that leads me right here into the offensive line. I believe this offensive line has talent. I think the talent is on the younger side. I don't think the most talented people are playing. And you say, well, how do you say that, Bryce? Why does that work? Because the freshmen, Weston Franklin, Shakai Leftwich, some of these guys behind the starters are going to be better than what we have now. They're going to be better 2 to 3 years. They've got to, that's the problem is the offensive line too, and I was talking with Rob McKenzie, our 24/7 sports writer, covering, and he even brought this up. Go back to 2019. There was no big offensive line commits. So that was a wasted class in the realm of that. So 2020, 2021, I mean, that's when you're getting your guys in. Those guys aren't contributing right now. And the problem is we're seeing some of these younger guys contribute along the defensive line. Jared Ivey's a big one. And I'm not just saying that because his mom is in the Twitter DM chat that we are all part of. But seriously, Jared Ivey, you're seeing the fruits of the labor he's put in. But offensive line-wise, that's a very tough position to learn. The jump from high school to college is very difficult. Few can do it seamlessly in their first 2 years. But I believe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, I believe the talent is there. It's on the way, but it's in the younger ranks. I think that the talent is there. I think that they can be successful. And that's no disrespect to who they have starting right now. None whatsoever. They've got to find a way to get healthy. The bye week comes at a perfect time. But this offensive line's got to look themselves in the mirror this week and really tell themselves, and I think this is up to Brent Key, this is up to a lot of different people, Georgia Tech's offensive line has to look themselves in the mirror and say, we've got the skill players. We've got a quarterback who is talented. We've got to make him feel more comfortable. Because I'm telling you, every single time Sims drops back to pass, he's keenly aware of what's coming. It's almost like when you know something bad's happening, you don't ever attribute to this, but like, if you played baseball, you played football growing up, or even, if you were, let's go back to if you were, riding your bicycle and your siblings kind of getting close to you on their bike and you don't quite know what's going to happen. And so what do you kind of do? You kind of shudder a little bit. That's what Jeff Sims does every time he takes a snap. He knows his backside is going to be hurt. And by backside, I mean the left tackle. Listen, Jordan Williams has been hurt. Ryan Johnson's nursing an injury. Mikey Minihan hasn't been 100%. Devin Cochran, not 100%. You're going to be banged up. But at some point, like I was saying, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, we have to be better. Because there's no excuse, and I will agree with you this, there's no excuse that Georgia Tech should not be more explosive offensively. At all. Kyrat McGowan has proved one of the big, I think, will go under the radar as one of the big-time transfers of this past cycle. Kyrat McGowan is a ball player. And for Amarian Brown that transferred out, Kyrat McGowan's filled in admirably. Nate McCollum, another great one. Malachi Carter. You have those weapons. What did we see on Saturday? Jahmyr Gibbs getting involved in the offense. 77-yard touchdown pass. Blown coverage, but they executed. Still got to throw the ball there. Still got to give your quarterback time. They did that. Jordan Mason, another key component. Dante Smith. No reason that this running back room can't be one of the best in the country. At all. None at all. And, we've been approaching the show, building the fan base is fantastic, but I wanted to say that because I know some might disagree, and I've seen some of the disagreeing comments on some of the message boards and everything like that. But I really do believe that this team can be good. But they're also going to struggle because they're young. They're young and inexperienced. And until you have gone through Some of the things Georgia Tech's going through right now, you don't know. Jeff Sims has never gone through this. You're talking about guys that were the best of the best in high school. Now, they may have been on some bad teams. But you're talking about guys who were just, let's say they were winners. That's what Collins says they recruit. They recruit winners. Until you go through this, and I'm telling you, it's going to make them better. It is going to make them better. A lot of people are worried about, if Jahmyr Gibbs would be able to take that next step. I think he has. I don't think there's a doubt that he might be one of the best skill players in the country. The team's just not good enough for them to get enough national notoriety. When you're playing back-to-back noon kickoff games, I mean, nobody's watching that, especially with the weekend in college football we just had, except for Georgia Tech and Duke fans. And and from the looks of what the stadium was filled like, there were no Duke fans there. There was no fans whatsoever. I know Patience Veach was up there, and some other fans as well. And you have to create an environment, and that goes back to what Bobby Dodd. The argument, and I'm not saying anyone in particular, but I've seen this. The argument of we will come, and this is great, David. I like this right here. What can we do more? Can we get Tech fans to actually show the bright? No. We had a great game against Clemson next week on disappointing our fans. So I want to keep David's comment up there because this is big for me. Buying into the program, getting butts into the seats, you can't happen when the team then starts playing well. Like, let's say they reel off 3 straight wins and they are 6-3 and like, oh man, this team, maybe they upset. No, you need to have your butts in the seats now. Now. I think it was disheartening to look up at the pit crowd for a lot of the players and see, what transpired there. I know some people, in the Twitter group posted some pictures of it, and you can't consider yourself. You can't. That's got to be on the fans. There has to be more butts in the seats in that aspect, David. How can you get them there? You got to have some. You have to win, and I get that. But at some point, you got to have the fans show up as well. You have to have a fan base that is bought into the product on there, and I think Collins has done a good job of that. We talk about marketing, selling the program. I think he has. But when you look at when you look at exactly kind of how this season has transpired, I mean, let's look at this. So Georgia Tech opens the season with Northern Illinois. Okay? Loses that one. Kennesaw State wins that one. But we all know the results. We don't have to go through those. But what's coming up? Okay? You have a bye week this week. Get rested, and then you head up to Charlottesville. What has Virginia shown me? I appreciate it, David, for the comment. What has he showed me? Or Virginia? They've shown me they don't play defense. They'll go out there and throw the ball for a massive amount of yards. But you have to turn around and you've got to keep your foot on the gas pedal. It's a thing a young team has to do. We're going to take a break real quick. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the latter half of the schedule. I'll walk you through that. And then, once again, Q&A. I want to get your thoughts. If you have questions, Keon White, some of these other situations. And I want to talk a little bit about basketball as well, ACC tip-off, when we come back. Want some of the best gear known to Georgia Tech fans? Check out Section 103. Fantastic gear. We wear it here on the show. You can pair it with your favorite Atlanta staples such as Waffle House and more. It's a great opportunity to be able to support your brand, support your team as well. We love having that in the building. Section 103, more comfortable club seats. The only place that you can get the ATL word mark. The Bobby Dodd Stadium is my happy place t-shirt. I've got the Welcome to Atlanta shirt, and I've also rocking the ATL hoodie tonight. Make sure to check Section 103 out for your greatest gear money can buy. Section103.com. Use code CROWDEDBOOTH for 10% off your first order. Guys, I cannot stress that enough. 10% off your first order with Crowded Booth. You can't, it's great gear. Look, I'm rocking it tonight. We got a crazy setup by producers out of town right now. He's watching. But look, we got some awesome gear. I'm loving it. We're enjoying it as well. It's comfortable for the fall time as well. But let's talk a little bit about this and keep it rolling here on some Swarm Talk. We talked a little bit about where this program is. We talked a little bit about what's happening. We talked about Virginia. Now, look, Virginia, you get that's an interesting game. 3-3. So let's look what you have upcoming. Virginia, Virginia Tech, Miami, Boston College, Notre Dame, Georgia. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. The injury to Derek King, even before that, I was confident in Georgia Tech being able to go down to Coral Gables and win that game. Virginia, Virginia Tech, Boston College, and Notre Dame in Georgia. I'm going to chalk Georgia up as a loss. Just right now on paper, guys, I just don't think this team matches up. I know how much we hate the Bulldogs in that sense, but there's a reason they're number one in the country. Right now, if you ask me on October the 12th, I'm taking the Dogs, and I don't even know how much of a spread it would be right now. May lose some viewers for that and followers for that as well. Boston College comes down on November the 13th. Guys, that's a game for me that is kind of up in the air. Boston College loses their quarterback. They're still a physical brand of football. They're going to be challenging to get in that ACC race as well. Can we catch them napping in Atlanta? I think, and like our good friend earlier said, I think it was David, Virginia and Virginia Tech are must-wins for Tech if we want to go bowling. This is crunch time. Virginia, if you can open up, and David, I want to say how big this is. If you can open up against Virginia, go on the road, coming out of this bye week, you're well rested. You come together and you say, listen, guys, we want to destroy the narrative that we aren't good enough to do this. Let's go do it. Okay, go to Charlottesville, get a win. Come back home. At least you get Virginia Tech at home. Because I'm going to tell you, playing up in Blacksburg so far this season has been rough, the environment-wise. If you can get the win against Virginia, that could propel you to some bigger wins that maybe aren't there. Virginia Tech could be one of them. Miami, I think, can definitely be one of them. Boston College is an interesting one. Notre Dame, I don't know what to expect. I think Notre Dame's still struggling identity-wise with what they want to do, but it's going to be very interesting. Jason, we appreciate you tuning in on the show as well, joining the Swarm Talk family. And listen, guys, keep the comments rolling. We want to hear from you. Virginia, Miami, and BC are our best chances, in my opinion. Jason, I'm kind of with you. Miami is going to be, to me, the one. If I can't pencil in any wins right now, which is kind of how hot and cold Georgia Tech can be. But if you had to roll me, I'd go Miami, Virginia, and Boston College in that order out of those. David as well. Virginia Tech, Boston College are winnable games. UM is a toss-up. Notre Dame and the Mutts are a loss. You know, Miami, to me, I know they've got some athletes, David, but I feel like that Georgia Tech went down there a couple years ago and won the ball game. If Georgia Tech executes and the offense line's working, they're very hard to stop. They showed you what the best they had to put out there against North Carolina. And I'm going to tell you one thing. There's very few teams in the conference that could beat Georgia Tech when they play like that. There's some positivity for you here on tonight's show. When Georgia Tech plays like they did against North Carolina, at what to me was the peak of what this current roster can do, they can beat just about everybody on the remaining schedule except for Georgia. And that's including Notre Dame. Because I think Notre Dame struggles offensively what they want to do. And if Georgia Tech's team goes on the road and plays defense like they did against North Carolina, they could win that game. We're not trying to blow smoke. I'm being serious here. I want to keep it real. I want you to have an opportunity to talk about it as well. Randall Sanders, appreciate it, Randall. I know you have commented before. We appreciate you coming back. And listen, we want to keep those retaining viewers as well. If you're viewing on Twitter, go over to the Crowded Booth on YouTube. We're Swarm Talk live every Tuesday night at 7:30. Virginia win, Virginia Tech win, Miami win, Boston College loss, Notre Dame win, Georgia loss. Randall, I like what you say here because I think if they can get the win, Virginia, that could propel them. They're going to be an underdog when the Hokies come to town, but that is a game right there that I feel like you got to be able to find a way to have. Miami is a win. Boston College is a loss. Notre Dame is a win. Georgia's a loss. And I'll say it again. If they play up to the standard of if North Carolina is the peak performance of this team right now, if they play that way, then heck yes, there's a lot of different things this team can do. And they can go to a bowl game. But, I'm talking a little too loud. But if this team turns around and has the Jekyll and Hyde performance that we've seen after the past couple weeks, then I think 5-7 or 4-8 are more realistic. But you say, well, Bryce, is that still an upward trend? Yes, but it's a process. You're going to have to stick with the process. And I don't want to get too much into what the Philadelphia 76ers were doing, but it's a process. The recruiting class coming in 2022 is straight fire, straight nastiness. It's going to be very good. Very, very good. Jerron Willis went on a visit to Mississippi State, but he is firmly committed to Georgia Tech. They bring in Zach Pyron, who we're going to try to get him on the show as well, and that's one big reason why I want you to hit that subscribe button, because started out in this venture, really wanted to bring Georgia Tech a lot of more media attention because I don't feel like they have that. And I said, hey, if the media is not going to pay attention, let's make it ourselves. So this is not just about me. This is about you, the fans, being able to take that next step as we elevate. As Georgia Tech's brand elevates, we want to be right there with it. Swarm Talk coming up live every Tuesday night. But I think this team has promise. I think the Duke game, we saw some things we liked. We saw some things we can take away and say, okay, we can get better. We also saw some things that were ugly. Mateo Durant's a great running back, guys. His longest rush was 11 yards. 11. That was one of the keys for me. Mateo Durant in this, and maybe we need to do 2 times a week going live on this so we can preview these games, but Mateo Durant is a very talented running back. You have to understand he's going to get his, but what did he do? You limited the big explosive plays that's made him dangerous all season long. Was impressed with that. The defense stood tall when they needed to and created some turnovers. That was really big. Randall Sanders back here. Wishful thinking, but upsetting an 11-0 Georgia, ruining their national championship chances would be huge. But again, wishful thinking. Randall, I'll say this, and the only reason I say this is not because I'm a Georgia fan, because I'm not, but is because it might be the fact of the matter, even a loss to Georgia Tech, if they play Alabama, one loss, we know how that goes. They still might be able to get in. But like I said, it might be a little bit of wishful thinking right there. David, Randall Sanders, we better scream 1980 if that happens, LOL. That would be fun to watch. That would be fun to watch, that game. I don't know if you guys know that I'm also the color radio analyst for Mercer's football team. So I've traveled on Saturdays with them, so I don't get to be at any of the games, but I would love to be in the stadium in some capacity, either covering it. We'll have to see how they do the media credentials, covering it, or just hanging out with you guys at a tailgate, talking some Georgia Tech football ahead of that Georgia Tech game. That would be a lot of fun to do. Would love to get a ticket or 2 to that game. But let's talk about what this team can do. I've already said it once. I'll say it again. If they play up the caliber of North Carolina, if they can find the consistency, which is all that separates the good from the average teams, in my opinion. I like right there, Randall saying we. Go Bears, David. David, I saw your Facebook message as well. I got to get back to you on that. But I think the biggest thing is if they play the consistency. Going back to that, you guys, I love the comments. You got me off my groove there for a second. Consistency to me in college football is one of the few things that separates the good from average teams. Now, the great and the elite teams are a little bit different. They do things at a higher level than everyone else. But I think Georgia Tech right now is an average team because you say, wow, well, when they play their best, they can hang with just about everybody but about 10 to 15 teams in the country probably. But when they play their worst, they're getting blown out by Pitt. And Pitt's a good football team, but man, that game should have been more competitive. This Duke game was a great example of getting punched in the mouth, coming back. I was really impressed with that. We're going to wrap the show up here in a second because it is Braves playoffs. I know you guys want to watch it. I love doing this. And please, seriously, guys, my DMs are open on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, Bryce Koon. You can find us. Let us know. And seriously, I'd love to go. I saw that right there. Randall, we took it in the varsity parking lot by the Torch every home game. Love to have you. I'd love to go live and do a show there. I know they have the tailgate show and all that stuff, but that would be so much fun. It'd be so much fun to experience a game day at Bobby Dodd. But this is something for me that it's fun. It's a ton of fun. I want to make this about you. I want to increase that. Steven, I really appreciate you really just jumping on board with something that we just kind of threw together. I mean, this is something that I'm excited to have you along. Once again, guys, you have to check out the Section 103 merch. It's fantastic. But the only way this is going to grow, and the only way we're going to have these, and I enjoyed having you guys here from the beginning. You guys have stuck with it. You guys have continued to watch it grow over here the past month. But I really think this can just continue to take off and continue to be something fun. You guys got to share it. You guys got to put it out there because you guys know the heartbeat of this fan base more than I do. You're in the Facebook groups. You're in all these different things. We can make this grow, and we can have a lot of fun. Randall right there with the update. 4-4, bottom 6, go Braves. I had to turn the TV off, man. I'm in a different setting. I'm not in my normal studio tonight. So I'll have to get that right there. But listen, guys, the biggest thing you can do is use the code CROWDEDBOOTH. Crowded Booth. It's right there, Crowded Booth. 10% off your first order at Section 103. You're not going to be disappointed. I'm telling you, man, literally just put this hoodie on. It is one of the most comfortable hoodies I've ever worn. I'm not going to take it off the rest of the game, especially since the Braves just tied it up. We can all agree on that. But I'm excited to see what you guys have to talk about. I'm excited to see what you guys bring, the energy, and let's try to get a tailgate going. Maybe a little Swarm Talk tailgate going on, November 27th, as Georgia Tech and Clean Old Fashioned 8 for the first time in 2 seasons. Listen, I enjoy doing this. The best way that we can grow this page and we can grow what we're doing here is to share. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, even if they're not Tech fans, have some Georgia Tech pride. This is a program, I'm telling you, they're on the upward trajectory. Looking ahead of the schedule, I think that there's some winnable games. This team, when they play at their best, can challenge just about anybody on the rest of their schedule, maybe except for Georgia in the realm, because Georgia is in that elite realm. I hate to say it, but that's where they are. Let's be real, guys. But hey, I love it. Love talking with you guys as always. A little bit short of a show. Listen, we're going to try to get Zach Pyron, quarterback commit. We're going to try to get him on next week, talk about that. We're going to keep bringing in some guests, talk with a couple former Hoops guys, get them on. And listen, basketball is back, baby. Fantastic. We're a month out. I want to see you at some of those games because I'm going to be there. I cannot wait to have McCamish rocking once again, one of the best venues in college basketball. And hey, home of the defending ACC tournament champions. Listen, appreciate it as always, everyone. Have a